Maybe.
Yes, we are.
There we go. All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Michael Stover, Big Sto. My homegirl Nora is over there. There we go. This is Office Hours, episode 3. We actually really appreciate the support over the last we've been live for a month now. Got a couple episodes up, over 60 subscribers, over 100 views on both episodes. We honestly can't appreciate you guys enough for showing support and sharing and all that stuff. So yeah, Nora, tell them a little bit about yourself and what we're doing.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the people who moved from Instagram to YouTube with us. Moving platforms isn't always so easy for folks. So thank you to everyone who's been supporting us. My name is Nora Rahimian. I'm a creative consultant. I help artists navigate success on their own terms, so without having to sell their soul to a label, and really focus on how artists can keep power without having to give up any of their financial freedom or their creative control. And I run Culture Fix, where we bring good people around the world together. And Sto and I have been doing office hours since the summer. So we're almost up on a year now. Yeah. So
yeah, it's insane. Just how long we've been at it, and I don't know. It's been a long road, but doing this on YouTube honestly has been really really crazy and really interesting at the same time.
You know what it is? I know we're talking about niche building today, but for me, YouTube is such an unfamiliar, uncomfortable platform. And so to let people watch me struggle is uncomfortable. And I think that's why
Right.
I appreciate so much the people who have kind of like watched us grow and kind of ride with us, because it makes it okay to mess up and learn, because I feel like folks are investing in us. Like if you're here with us now, I know you'll be with us when we're like super fly and perfect and stuff. So as folks are coming in, hi, hello, and welcome. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the comments. Tell us who you are and what you do and where you're from. Today we're talking about niche building, but if you have any questions, drop those in the comments at any time and we'll answer them live. Yeah. So you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Michael Stover, Big Sto, hip-hop journalist, artist development, doing work with Taste Creators, 5-7 Collective, everybody's hip-hop label, all that stuff. So yeah, we're super glad that you guys are here, and really excited actually to talk about niche audience, because I think it's one of the last keys I think most people and creators are missing before they take that next step.
So actually, I think it's one of those questions, like people say niche, but I don't know that they really know what that means and why it's important. So that's the question we want to start off today. And maybe we break it down. What is it actually, like, what is a niche? What does that actually mean?
Right. Now, I'm not going to pretend I have like the actual technical Webster's definition for niche or whatever. My whole deal is you have your niche audience is almost the exact person that you want to target with your music. And honestly, that's about the simplest of terms that I try to keep it down to, because honestly, even for me, sometimes it can get kind of confusing. But yeah, the ideal person that you want to listen to your content, and sometimes that doesn't exactly look like it's not always the exact person you're thinking of, but at least around that idea of who should I be appealing to? Because like we said last week, it can't be everybody.
Right. So it's like specific, it's like a very focused and very specific representation of who your audience is. Your niche is not everybody. Your niche is not all hip hop fans or men ages 14 to 64. Like your niche is very, very specific. It's the thing that makes you stand out. It's the thing that you represent besides just music. And it's also not your analytics or your demographics. It's who you, not necessarily who you are already attracting, but who do you want to attract? And so the reason why that matters is once you have that like specificity,
specification, maybe.
Once you're
I have no
specific,
idea.
once you have a specific idea about who you're making music for, who that core audience is, then you can figure out the ecosystem around that person so that you can put yourself in front of people like that over and over and over again. You can interrupt their customer journey and meet the customer where they're at. So it's things like figuring out what kind of merch you should sell, or should you do all ages shows, or 21 and over shows? What kind of visuals should you use? Like the more you understand your niche,
Right.
the more you can decide what your marketing and promo and merch and all the other stuff can look like. Serial Sensei says, your niche is where all of the people you wish you were friends with in high school that are scattered over the world. I think this is an interesting thing about your niche, because it doesn't what it highlights is that it's not necessarily location specific. It's finding
Right.
the type of person you're making music for and finding where they are gathering virtually, right? Especially in today's world, virtually. And so they are scattered all over the world, but geography doesn't matter. You're looking at like virtual locations.
Exactly. And I think that's really like a good thing to touch on, because like, yes, obviously you want to appeal to your local scene, and you want to appeal to, your statewide scene and all that jazz, but you genuinely, especially in this day and age, you genuinely have a chance to appeal to anybody all over the world. Even there are people in this room that are going to come in that are going to be from all over the world, not just, from my stupid state of Ohio or all the way over in California. It's literally people all over the world.
So that brings up the question of like, how do you find your niche? And I have some questions, but still, I know, like, I do this with artists a lot. I'm sure you do too. What do you recommend for folks in terms of identifying their niche?
So one of the first things that we usually tell artists to kind of think about is, imagine your Pandora channel and your song comes up. What ideally 3 artists would play next that would fit in with your track? I'm not saying just 3 really cool songs that you like or whatever, but 3 specific songs, or rather artists, excuse me, that fit with the song that is on your Pandora station. Now the majority of us, if you all know what Pandora is, usually they tried to keep the music within a certain taste and within a certain like vibe, I guess, or whatever. And so when you're able to figure out what that looks like and what that sounds like, you can start there, because that's cutting down from everybody, but it's still specific enough, and I guess, popular enough that you can still get those ads and all that stuff to a variety of people to at least see the content that you're creating.
For anyone who's watching, if you're here with us live and you want to tell us what your niche is, we can workshop it with you here. If you're feeling kind of brave or you want to tell us what your niche is, please drop that in the comments. I think part of it is thinking about, outside of music, who is the person that you're making music for? And so I have artists think about questions like, what do they care about in the world? What do they do for fun? What do they worry about? What kind of humor do they have? Like, what makes them laugh?
Right.
How much disposable income do they have? Are they vegetarians or are they meat eaters? It's just really thinking about, like, if you had one person come to your show, what is their daily life like from beginning to, from morning to night?
Right.
The tricky part is there's kind of no wrong or right answer. Your niche can be whatever you decide for it to be. And so it's not so much looking at your analytics and like figuring out what your streams indicate. It's really just sitting down and thinking about, these are the kind of people I want to attract, and making a clear decision about that, so that then you can figure out where they hang out so that you can intervene in their virtual journey. So it's really just kind of sitting there. And I tell people, like, write it down, write a bio for the character.
Right. That's the best way to do it, honestly. Write it down.
Write it down so that you have this persona in mind. I was with a client today, and what we figured out from her, like, we created her persona, and what came out really clearly was that her niche is people who like music, who are like really intellectual about it. Like, they want to debate music, and they have strong opinions, and like, she runs a music blog. And so what we realized off of that information is that she can do more critical, longer pieces. She doesn't have to be clickbaity. She can like delve deep into some journalistic stuff, and because her audience wants to engage with that kind of stuff. So based off of what we figured out from her niche, now we're able to apply that to her content and to the type of captions she's writing and to the type of posts she's making and to the type of places where she can go to find those people and then bring them in to engage with her. So kind of the short answer to how you find your niche is you just make it up, but you have to be really, really specific. I don't know, Sto, if you have an example you'd like to share.
Well, the only other thing I'd put on top of that is like, it kind of requires a bit of like experimentation in terms of figuring out what works and what doesn't. Like, I talk about this with my clients all the time. You are not always going to find your target audience overnight. I'm going on 30 years old, and I kind of just figured out my target audience maybe 3 years ago after trying and really like creating content and doing all this stuff for over a decade. So, you know, some of it, it just takes time seeing what works and seeing what doesn't, before scrapping it.
Well, and it's like, it's a little bit of both, right? It takes time. You pick your niche. It takes time to cultivate that relationship with that audience. It's not like, oh, well, I tried for a week and now I'm like over it. It takes time. And also you might realize that your niche is changing. And so that's also part of it, is that it's a living thing. Serial Sensei says, I haven't really perfected finding my niche, but a lot of the people who have liked my book were awkward high school kids, but then also older people liked it too, so I don't know. So what I would invite you to look at is not so much the age difference, but what do these people have in common? And that might be like, what is the need that you're filling for these people that both the awkward high school types and the older people have in common? That commonality is probably going to be the indicator of your niche.
Right. Because think about it. Like, think of anything that's even like remotely mainstream. Even if I think just like like Game of Thrones, like, it's not just for people, for nerds who like fantasy stuff. It exceeds way beyond that. And to even take it to the business side of things, HBO made sure that they put ads and commercials and all this stuff into the general population, because they know that the show would appeal to more than just people who are Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter types or whatever. So, you know, the other thing that I would say is not to pigeonhole yourself too soon. I think it's very easy to put yourself in a box and be like, all right, well, you know, I only appeal to this one group. That's not necessarily true either. So like I said, like on top of the experimentation, it's just, don't box yourself in so hard that you don't feel like you can appeal to anybody but this one specific person either.
I mean, part of why it's so important is when you understand your niche, it allows you to brand yourself really clearly. And so what people learn from that is consistency in what they can get from you. Right. So if I know all the time that Sto is going to be reliable and consistent and hip-hoppy and talking about video games, I know what I'm going to expect. So there's a trust there when I go to him for something, or I look on his profile or whatever. But if one day Sto is, you know, all about like basketball, and the next day he's like, basketball sucks, it's football, and then it's like, no, fuck football, sports suck. You know, if he's all over the place, it's going to be hard for me to rely on Sto as a consistent character. And so that's part of the work around niching is that you want to be able to allow people to trust you and get to know you, and consistency and stability do that. That doesn't mean don't experiment. It doesn't mean, to Sto's point, you should pigeonhole yourself, but you don't want to be like up and down all over the place, because then people don't. I see this with artists who like, they're doing an Afrobeat song and then they're doing Bollywood and then they're doing pop and then because they're trying to jump on just like whatever's popular. And that can get really, really confusing for your audience. And so you cannot be everything to everyone. You have to start off very clearly to say, this is what I am. This is the audience that I want to connect with. I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. And then when those people buy into you, then it spreads out from that, right? Game of Thrones didn't start with like everybody loving it. Game of Thrones started with like that core kind of fantasy, sci-fi, historical fiction people. And then it grew, and then it grew, and then it grew, right? And so that's the thing, is you want to start with, and so part of the way to think about that too is to think about, as you're figuring out your niche, who isn't getting attention that you could give attention to?
Right.
Who isn't being recognized or seen or represented that you can represent? And then as you represent them, people are like, oh, this person gets me, they see me, they emotionally bond with you. And that's where that's where it goes. So this next idea is like, now that you understand why a niche is important and you figured it out, what do you do with that information?
I mean, my biggest, I guess, takeaway, like there's so many different things I could talk about, but the biggest thing is just creating content towards that audience. And doing that consistently. I have seen cats that do find their audience and then they'll create, they'll put out a video or something like that or whatever. And then maybe it does okay or does decent or whatever, but then they do nothing after that to keep it going. And it's not, and here's the other thing, when it comes to creating content, it's not just about putting out music.
Right.
Putting out content can mean videos. It can mean music videos, but it can also mean just stuff like this where you're just talking to the people. What did I see? I saw Flatbush Zombies, Eric Elliott or whatever. He just wrote a letter to his fans like, yo, this is how I'm feeling. Like I know we've never been through stuff like this before, but in the 8 years I've been in this group, like I feel special. And that's because of my fans. Like little things like that can go a long way. But it all just comes down to making content and keeping that content going consistently. You can't just drop something, retweet it a couple times, and think that that's the only content you can put out and expect to grow an audience off of that. It just doesn't work like that.
It lets you tailor your content, your marketing strategy, your merch, like whatever. It lets you tailor everything to your specific audience so that they're getting something that's made directly for them. So an example of that would be if you know that your audience are college students, then you can hit up college radio. You can book college tours. You know that that's where your audience is, so that's where you go. If you know that your niche is, I talk about this person a lot. I worked with an artist who really was like in the dancing community. And so their merch was like bags and things that dancers needed. It was tailored specifically to the community that they were speaking to. It also comes in really handy when you're reaching out to media outlets. If your niche is like punk, like 90s era punk rock, don't reach out to a hip hop blog. Right. Reach out to people who are writing about what you're writing about. Or don't go to like hip hop forums, go to where punk people are talking about the kind of music. I'm reading a Nirvana book, so punk is on my mind. But it lets you figure out where you can focus and streamline so that you get a higher rate of return rather than just throwing it out at everybody and waiting to see what hits. So you really use the information from your niche to figure out where you should market, what kind of merch you should put out, what price points you should hit, where you might want to tour. It also helps you figure out who else you can collaborate with, because you look at who else has a similar niche, and that'll help you figure out who you should collaborate or partner with. And so that should be the foundation of your marketing plan, really, is understanding your niche.
And listen, like it's not easy, guys. Like I know it is easy for us to talk about, because I feel like both of us kind of know where we fit in. But, and like, even using myself as an example, like, yes, I obviously appeal to independent artists specifically, but a lot of you guys don't know that I'm also an artist. So I also think about things like what people I'm appealing to on that front, which is usually more so on an underground type niche or whatever. Then going even further, and this is where I wanted to get to the point of, is that finding your niche and creating content for that niche requires that you are absolutely 110% honest with who you are and who you want to be to others. It took me a really, like, I'm a gamer through and through and have been since literally 4 years old. But I didn't like talking about it on the internet, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're a nerd and what are you doing? No one wants to hear that shit. Where are the keys at? And so it took me a long time to get to a point where it's like, you know what? Like, I know gaming is one of the most popular mediums in existence. And so it makes no sense for me to remove that part of myself when it's one of the most key parts of who I am as a person. And now that I do that stuff, I get interaction. It may be from different people or whatever, and they may never even work with me on music stuff. But it's just engaging that audience and growing that audience and just having that discussion. Not every single thing that you post or deal with or whatever has to lead to another follower or another retweet or whatever. You can genuinely put stuff out just to be yourself. And honestly, that draws people to you. And like, I'm telling you guys, like, I know it sounds corny. I know it sounds weird. I used to think all of that stuff was weird. Oh, be yourself. Like, what? No one cares about that. But it's true. That's what people grow to. That's what those making that relationship that close or whatever makes it so much easier when you do finally push a product or whatever. We talk about emotional connection all the time on here, and like, that's what it all comes down to.
I mean, it's also like, people can tell when you're faking the funk.
Right.
So if you're pretending to be something that you're not, then you're going to alienate your fans. They're going to, instead of connecting with you, they're going to go to that person who really is about that thing. And so rather than being a caricature or, pretending or lying or whatever, really understanding who you are is going to help you. So as we're having this conversation, please feel free to ask us questions, introduce yourself, or if you want to share your niche and we'll workshop it live, feel free to drop those questions in the comments. I'm going to add this question from MDS Bella. Would you say that you really have to reach a certain level of popularity before you can figure out your niche? So for someone like me with under 400 consistent fans, it's just impossible to pinpoint.
All right, I'll let Nora take this first, but I'm just going to say, hell no. Even with under 400 consistent fans, that's a huge, there are so many people who would murder for 400 consistent fans. So Nora, go. Yeah,
so first of all, 400 is amazing, because if those 400 give you $20 even, think about the return that you can get off of your fans. So 400 is not a small number, especially if you've done the work to really make them engaged fans rather than casual followers, which is some of what we're talking about. I don't think you need a certain level of popularity. Actually, the more popular you become, the less the niche matters, or the less specific. So you start specific so that you can build those hardcore fans, and then you branch out and it gets broader and broader. So what I would suggest, Bella, for you is to think about those consistent fans. What do they have in common? What are the commonalities? But it's also looking at not just who's already coming to you. That's one information stream. But the other part of it is, who would you like to attract? What kind of fans would you like to bring in and understand them a little bit, right? So then you can put yourself in front of them, you can engage with them, you can bring them into this community of fans that you've built. So there's the fans that exist, and then there's the fans that you want to attract. And so it's never too early. It's probably one of the things you should do earlier in your career so that you can build out to that number. Would you add anything, Sto?
The only thing I would add is that, like, take a look at some of the stuff that you've created as you've built these fans and see what has worked and what has gotten like the most interaction and engagement, rather. Because that can kind of steer you in the direction of what your audience likes and stuff like that. And again, just kind of looking within and seeing, what is it about? I mean, this sounds kind of weird, but like, what is it about me that my audience is engaging with and that they really like? And like, you can take that and roll with it. But my God, 400 fans, like that's, you can easily run with that. And, you know, the one point I didn't really make it like at the top of this is, if you pin down your niche and really pin down your target audience, I genuinely believe that is where the bag is. And
for sure.
That's how you make your money. And so yeah, you're on your way. You really are. That's whew.
And Bella, the thing I would say for you is the thing that they have in common might not be visible, right? It might be an emotional thing, right? All of your fans are people who, you know, didn't have a family, and so they're looking for a fandom that gives them that feeling of connection and community, for example. Or, you know, it's not always going to be like a tangible thing. Sometimes the thing that pulls your niche together is an emotional feeling or a sense of entertainment or something like that. And so as you know, just kind of play around with it and study your audience, it'll come up. We had another question that came in from Instagram. So let me just get it in here. What do you do if you don't think there is an audience for your work?
Now, for me personally, like I see both sides of the question, but I genuinely don't, like, there's an audience for everyone. I genuinely believe that. Like 120% through and through. And I relate to this question because, again, I was in the same spot, really believing like, damn, like I don't fit in anywhere. Well, like, what's the point of doing all this if I really don't fit in anywhere? And it's flat out not true. And so, you know, again, I kind of just go back to, it takes time and experiment with the things that you're into and stuff like that, like your hobbies and what you do in your spare time and what you're tweeting about. Like that's one thing that to really look into. What is it that you're tweeting about randomly, like when you're just off the top or whatever, and head towards that direction. For me, like, it kind of took me a while to you know, follow a couple more accounts, and, you know, between YouTubers and all these other content creators, there's platforms all over the place with different audiences, and, you know, whether it's forums or chat rooms or Reddit or whatever, that are filled with those niche audiences. So I think some of it comes down to, again, being patient with yourself and just experimenting with different things. Because like I said, everybody can fit in somewhere. I promise.
Yeah, I mean, I just echo that. There is always a niche for your audience. It's just, I mean, there's 7 billion people in the world.
Right.
Out of 7 billion people, guaranteed someone wants what you have. And I'm seeing people in the comments echo that. There's always an audience. There's literally a lane for everything, Serial Sensei says. And so the work is to understand. So your job as like marketing, right, is to put out the bat signal that says, hey, I make music for this type of person. Right. But you want to put out the bat signal in those places where those people are. And so that's where, going back to what we've been talking about for the last half hour, is really understanding your niche, which will help you understand where they spend their time online. Are they on Reddit? Are they on TikTok? What subreddits are they on? What hashtags are they using? What articles are they reading? Who are they following? You know, how do they interact? Like, you really understand their psychology. And then you send out that bat signal, and then they come to you. And then your content is designed to keep them there, which is the other part. Which is the other part. But there really is an audience for everyone. And I mean, there's some really, I was talking to someone earlier, and their niche is helping people who move to small towns from big cities and helping them adjust. Like, it's so, I was like, and there's like multiple people who do this kind of work. India Prather says there's a lane for everyone. Serial Sensei says ESPN is showing cornhole tournaments. Like, right? There's
anything
all
is
kinds.
possible, right?
And so, yeah. So your lane is out there. It just takes some time to find it. And that's the part. It's just, this takes time, right? 7 billion people means that they're out there, but 7 million people means it's also just harder to find them. And so you just kind of got to do that work a little bit.
Be patient with yourself, damn it.
We're coming up on our half-hour mark. I want to thank everyone for hanging out with us. I'm Nora Rahimian. This is Sto. Any final thoughts, Sto, before we wrap up today?
No, I hope this conversation was helpful. I know I kind of talked about myself a lot in this one, but one of the things that I do want to kind of come out through this show or whatever is kind of the journey that both of us have taken to get to this point. Because one of the bigger misconceptions on here is that we kind of just popped up, hey guys, what's up? We're here to drop keys, but that's not how it goes. We both of us have been working in this for years and have gone through both the struggle and the ups and downs of all of this. So a lot of these questions, like I remember feeling like, damn, I don't have a target audience, I don't have a niche. I remember feeling those feelings, and feeling like, yo, maybe I don't have an audience and stuff like that. But again, I really do encourage you to get in tune with yourself and what you bring to the table as a person, because again, I know this is corny or whatever, but one of my favorite rappers, Othello, he always used to say, there's something only you can do that has to be done. It's impossible for anybody to be you. And being you is one of the strongest things you bring to the table. So embrace that. And I promise the sooner you embrace that, people will become attracted to that. I promise.
Yeah. And don't be scared that other people won't come. I think that's there's like this anxiety. Well, if I only focus on these people, I'm going to lose all these other people. You won't. People are attracted to people who know what they want, who know who they are, who have a personality, who pick a side, who take a stand. If you're like wiggly, washy, wobbly, you're not going to attract those people. And so don't be afraid to trust in who you are and lean into that, because your audience is going to respect that and respond to that. Sto and I do these office hours every first and third Tuesday of the month. If you have questions, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram, drop them in the comments. We'll answer the questions. If you have things you want us to talk about, we'll do it next time. This is the part where we tell you to subscribe.
There's a bell thingy around here somewhere as well that will literally remind you when we go live next. I don't know. YouTube's all over the place, because actually that's the other thing. Damn it. Leave a like if you can, because I know it helps the stupid algorithm or whatever. Definitely leave a comment, because they've messed up they like have switched around where comments are on the damn page. So yeah, interact with us. Let us know what you want to see, because honestly, we're here to serve you guys and let you guys know what's up. So yeah, do all that corny YouTube stuff, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, peace.